The Eames chaise is a machine for napping, and it was introduced in 1968. Some really important lessons of this. By 1968, and actually throughout the late 1950s, Charles and Ray Eames were successful enough that they could put the amount of time that they needed into designs that they were considering. They got the idea of doing this chaise from legendary film director Billy Wilder in 1956 when Charles Eames was shooting second unit on the film Spirit of St. Louis. And Billy Wilder explained to them that he liked to take power naps during the day, and he liked to take them on a narrow plank, and he'd cross his arms, and that allowed him to take a power nap of just the right amount of time, because at the point that he fell in too deep a sleep, his arms would fall to the sides and he'd wake up. From that original inspiration from 1956 to 1968, 12 years of work and thought went into this chaise. And what's interesting is a number of the Eames designs that we see, whether they're in wood or molded plastic or even other aluminum ones, went through various evolutions. The Eames chaise, however, with 12 years of thought and development, is still made by Herman Miller today in 2011. Using the same molds and methods devised by the Eames office in 1968. So sometimes it does pay to take 12 years to develop a product, because 1968 to 2011, they can't come up with any better way of making it than they were originally made. I've talked about the fact that Eames has always applied architectural solutions to problems, and I think you can certainly see the architectural aspects of this. It's a solid cast aluminum base. They first made something out of aluminum back in 1953, the caps of the DAT-1 that we saw. So they, at this point, had 15 years of experience working with aluminum. I've mentioned in connection with architectural solutions is when you're doing a building, you don't want to use excess material. You want to make the Golden Gate Bridge strong enough so that the Golden Gate Bridge doesn't fall down, but if you make parts of the bridge too heavy, then the support structures are going to get too expensive. And there's a delightful story about this final architectural consideration in the design of the Eames chaise, which is in the last year before putting it into production, Charles and Ray had a 24-inch wide version and an 18-inch wide version of this chair in Charles's office. And there was a lot of pressure on them to do the 24-inch wide model, but they resisted. Sometimes the creative process involves saying, no, it's not quite ready yet. And right towards the end, maybe a month before they finally said to Herman Miller, it's ready to go, Charles climbed on top of the 18-inch wide version, and Charles was tall and thin. Ray was short and not so thin. And people in the office said that Charles and Ray hung off this like a pair of saddlebags, yet they didn't fall to the ground. And Charles said 18 inches is plenty wide enough, and we have this great 18-inch wide design today. The first one was given as a gift to Billy Wilder, who had inspired it, and one of the considerations that he gave them was, if you're doing this for me, please make sure that nobody can mistake it for a casting couch. Well, it's certainly narrow enough that nobody would imagine that you could do anything other than nap on it. And when Billy Wilder got it, he said, well, that's very fine if your girlfriend is a Giacometti.